I've always enjoyed Taylor Sheridan's work. He's written some really, really compelling movies, as well as some pretty engaging and complex television series. However, the past few years I've started to suspect that he may be getting pulled in too many different directions at once, and I think it may be starting to catch up with him. Like and subscribe if you haven't, hit that notification bell, and if you're new, check out the rest of the channel and let me know what you think. Let's dive into Lioness Season 2. I very much enjoyed the premiere season of Lioness. I think it's some of Sheridan's best work as not only a writer, but a director in the realm of television. It's arguably his best show to date. And I've always admired the way that Sheridan tackles complex issues. While you can gather what his personal beliefs may be on certain political or social issues, he's always, in my opinion, been very committed to presenting arguments from both sides. Which is refreshing in this day and age where it seems like every film or show is just a conduit to push some sort of message. This was my favorite aspect of Season 1. The CIA and the various organizations that operate under their umbrella is a convoluted web of fuckery, to say the least. I'm not an advocate for what they do, but I'm also not a detractor. I understand the purpose of an organization like the CIA to exist. There are instances when things happen in this world, and for the benefit of everyone's safety, people have to get their hands dirty, do things that some may see as reprehensible. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. I can also acknowledge that a lot of unnecessary chaos has been spurred across the globe because of their constant meddling in foreign affairs under the guise of protecting the homeland. In Season 1, I think Sheridan tackled this very nuanced subject matter beautifully, through the narrative and its characters alike. In Season 2, the eloquent way in which Sheridan discusses complicated issues get touched upon, but all in all, sort of get lost in the shuffle. The best way I can describe Season 2 is unfocused. What kicks off with an operation to insert new Lioness Josephina into her uncle's cartel operation to try and convince him to turn CIA asset flips halfway through the season into a pursuit and elimination of two Chinese nuclear scientists in Iran. How we get from point A to point B is a bit dizzying. This season is constantly in conflict with itself. It doesn't really know which storyline it wants to dedicate its time to. And here's the thing, both stories that Sheridan wants to tell are both interesting. The idea of Josephina being forced into deep cover, given this ultimatum to force her family to turn and become government rats, is interesting. In the same light, an investigation into ongoing complex issues at the border and how other countries are involved in influencing cartels is also very compelling. And you can see how the two go hand in hand, but when you look at them individually through a microscope, they're very separate narratives. The fact that he couldn't pick one central storyline, like in the first season, really drags Lioness's second season down. The other issue is these seasons are only 8 episodes long, which is fine. That is plenty of time to tell a story like he wants to tell. But it's not even close to sufficient if you aim to tell two parallel narratives simultaneously. Even as enjoyable as the finale is, and trust me, it's very enjoyable, it does feel very rushed and unresolved when it's all said and done. My guess is this has a lot to do with Sheridan crafting and creating so many shows under the Paramount Plus banner. But all of that being said, this season still is very enjoyable. The performances are incredible, chiefly Zoe Saldana. I love her in this role. She is so commanding every scene she's in. And the time spent focused on the growing conflict in her and Neil's marriage is so engaging. It's heartbreaking at times, it's inspiring at times, it's painful at times. Saldana and Dave Annabelle's chemistry is so electric, and it's what makes this portion of this show work so well. This whole situation is just so intricate and delicate, and it feels so relatable sometimes. On one side, you have a spouse who is fearful of their significant other's work, and the notion that this work could lead to the death of the one they care for the most, creating a void in the lives of them as well as their children. And we also get the other side, the spouse who is reluctant to give up their profession because of how important they see their job to the world at large, even knowing that this job could take them away from their family permanently. It's a very personal and difficult problem, and I think that's the one aspect of this season 2, as well as season 1, that Sheridan just portrays so well. The supporting cast, as it was in season 1, is fantastic. Kidman, Freeman, and Michael Kelly are all back as Saldana's handlers, all three getting more to do, which is always great. Expanding the roles of three very good actors is always a plus in my mind. Saldana's team is all back with the permanent addition of Thad Luckenbill's Kyle, who I thought was a standout recurring character in season 1, so I'm glad that they brought him back as more of a permanent fixture. We even get a return of Leisla de Oliveira as Cruz, the Lioness from season 1. Even though this role as a Lioness is meant to be only a one and done situation, Sheridan thinks up a clever way to bring her back into the fold. And lastly, newcomer Genesis Rodriguez is excellent as our new Lioness. Even though she doesn't even really complete her mission, she's incredible regardless. The very anxious and crushing scenes she shares with her father are highlights of this season. The action is elevated even further from season 1, which I didn't even think was possible. One thing I love about Sheridan's work, even if the final product isn't always great, is that he always takes the utmost care in presenting the subject matter in a very realistic fashion. Whether it's the Old West, ranching, inner-city gang violence, or CIA combat missions. That remains true in this show. All of the action seems so authentic, expertly coordinated, and just so visceral. I mean, my god, that finale is just pure heart-pumping action done right. I really wish that Sheridan would have split these ideas into 2 separate seasons. This season's sole focus should have been Josefina and her mission with her father and uncle. Then you could take the resolution of this and lead it into season 3 and have the team gather intel on how different countries are utilizing the cartels for their own purposes and go from there. But throwing it all into one 8-episode season is really its downfall. Regardless, Sheridan is no rookie, and he is still able to draw on some very complicated and intriguing plot points and character moments, along with some very engaging action set pieces that still make Lioness one of the best shows on TV.